riders with former French national champion of Soudal Quickstep, Rémi Cavagna. And for Total Energy, it's indicated it's Julien Simon, but pretty sure it's Valentin Ferron, the 25-year-old from Vienne, which is actually not that far from where we are racing today. They attacked straight from the gun. There was a little bit of a counter move by three riders. The names were Niels Brun of the Tudor Pro Cycling Team, youngster Noah Isadore of U Nantes Atlantique, and Florian Rapito. They approached this duo up to about 1.5 minutes, and then, well, they basically just faded away. Are now in the peloton, meaning we have two guys left, these two to be exact. Rémi Cavagna, he has won this race before, and that was after a rather monumental solo effort of 47 kilometers, so over an in the lead all by himself. And, well, who knows, he might do it again today, but not if it's up to a Groupama FDG or one of the other 14 World Tour teams. Very active at the front already are Trek Segafredo and also the EF Education Easy Post team. My name is Jose Bain. With me today is Hannah Walker. Hannah, do you have the same that if you're looking at these races in the south of France that you say, I just want to ride there. I just want to be there right now?
Good afternoon, Jose. Absolutely. And also I think you can already feel the pain in your legs on these heavy roads because they're always heavy energy sapping roads in this region as well. And no less because of some of the narrow roads, the steep, short, punchy climbs that we'll see on 11 occasions during today's race. So, beautiful region to ride, I have to say.
Yeah, and if they already call a climb a mur, we do know that it's a mur. And it's those climbs that basically rise up from the Rhône River that we are to the west of today. Officially, our start place is Guilherand-Grange, and that has one reason, because the main sponsor here, Faun-Ardèche, is located in this town. But just on the other side of the Rhône River is Valence, which is basically the port towards the south of France. If you drive to the south, at least from my part of the world, on the Route du Soleil, Valence is always the moment that you think, this is the south of France. This is holiday time. I can already see the vineyards and smell the cheese.
I think the riders will just be praying for the sun to peep out at some point today. It's due to a little bit later on, but it's full cloud cover, around 8 degrees at the moment.
Yeah, 8 degrees. It's not a lot. It's a little bit warmer than Spain at the moment, where, of course, we also cover the race in Galicia in the northwest of Spain, where it's snowing. The first stage was cancelled about 25 kilometers out from the finish line, and now they had to shorten the straight, also considerably due to snowfall. No snowfall today and no rain, which is, it's almost been a month, actually, that it rained in this part of the world. So not great, but we have had additions here, Hannah, in these races that it was like 2-3 degrees. It was raining. There were hailstorms. The only big obstacle today that we have is pretty strong winds that come through the valley of the Rhône River. Tomorrow it's going to be even worse, but today we still hit peaks of about 60 kilometers an hour, which is about 40 miles an hour wind.
We do, and it's a northerly wind that the riders have today, and on some of the climbs it kind of plays into their favour. It means that they've got a tailwind, which, for example, on the Saint-Romain-de-l'Europe climb, which is around just over 6 kilometres long, they'll have a tailwind there, so that's great for those pure climbers. It's probably not in favour of those puncheurs who would prefer the wind to be more in their favour as opposed to having a tailwind, but it is strong, and as I say, that northerly wind.
Yeah, northerly winds are absolutely horrible. I noticed this morning when I went out on a bike ride, they always tend to bring rain and hail, and I didn't avoid it either. Yeah, a couple of years ago, this man won this race. It was back in 2020, just before the first lockdowns, actually. One of the last races, actually, before the big lockdowns. And he did that after a 47-kilometer solo, which is a fantastic achievement, Hannah. But I do hope that he's not going to do it again, because for us as commentators, it makes our life a little bit more difficult.
It certainly does. And he's been away with Valentin Faron for a long time now, and those three riders did try to come across, and they never really made any inroads. I think that one of the narrowest time gaps was just less than 3 minutes and 50. So it was going to be a tall ask, a tall order, but for these two, and for Cavagnard having had such success here before in the past and good memories, he'll be trying to make a repeat, but it'll be a long one, won't it? And this race, it does favour those solo attacks and solo victories too, and or at least a small group.
Launching pad if you want to try something.
It's a brilliant launch pad for someone who wants to go in those final 6-7 kilometres until the finish line. You've got maximum gradients of 14%, and that's with around 700 metres before you crest the top of the climb. So it really is a leg stinger, but the perfect platform for a rider, if they're feeling good, to try something.
Yeah, we're on our way to the next climb of the day. That is number 6, I think. Yeah, am I counting? No, 5. Number 5. Col de la Justice, that comes at 80 kilometres from the finish line. It's 1.7 kilometres long, just a 3.9%. So I think for most of these World Tour riders, that is big ring stuff.
It is, and today's race, as you were just mentioning before, Jose, that today's probably the easier of the two races, the two one-day races. Today the climbs are longer. We're seeing climbs where, whilst the Mur de Cornas and the Saint-Romain de l'Alpe, it's two separate climbs, it's almost classified in one. So we're seeing upwards of 10 kilometres of climbing, whereas tomorrow much more steep, sharp, punchy climbs that we will see with steep gradients. And when you take a look at today's climbs and you say 14% maximum or 13% in places, it's still very, very difficult, but certainly gives that big opportunity for riders.
Well, what I do notice is that we don't have any support from the team cars behind these two riders. Of course, this is not a stage race. In a stage race, a team can have 2 team cars. In a one-day race, it's just 1. So apparently both the sports director of Total Energy and the sports director for Soudal Quickstep, which is Davide Bramati here, have decided to stay with the peloton and have the neutral service take care of their riders. They probably drove up to the neutral service, give a wheel of the brand that they are using, and if there is a problem, they have support there. 2 teams working really hard at the front are the EF Education Easy Post team. I've been doing the Tour of Rwanda as well, Hannah. That's why I hesitated. And there it's called EF Education Nippo. It's the development team. So I was like, a little bit of a problem there. They're here with Esteban Chavez, Jonathan Caicedo, and his fellow countryman Jefferson Cepeda, Sean Quinn, Odd Christian Eiking, who has been on the podium here before, and we have Mikkel Honoré and the national champion for Eritrea, Merhavi Kudus. So no Nielsen Paulus here, the man of the early season races actually in France, winning Grand Prix La Marseillaise and Étoile de Bessèges. And that was also the races where we saw Valentin Faron shine. He was second in Grand Prix La Marseillaise and also second in the third stage of Bessèges. And when we look at Cavagnard, his road to this race was actually through Spain, through Mallorca, and the Tour of the Algarve, where he was second in the time trial. So actually both guys are in a pretty solid shape. These are riders preparing for Paris-Nice that starts next.
Both having had really good starts to the season. And we see on the other hand, for example, Julian Alaphilippe, just with the 3 race days early on in the season in Spain, had a few weeks of training. Comes here, I think it was interesting before seeing that Quick-Step were pulling actually at the head of the peloton, which was quite surprising, considering they've got Rémi Cavagna in this group, or should I say Soudal Quick-Step.
There's a bit like Omloop at Nieuwsblad vibes from, what was it, 12 years ago with the Standard. Of course, the story's been rehashed a lot in recent days due to the fact that, of course, we have Omloop as well. We are in the Parc Régional Mont d'Ardèche, and I've been privileged enough to be riding here myself. It's stunning. And I always say of these regions in France, you don't always have to go to the Pyrenees, and you don't always have to go to Alpe d'Huez. Here are climbs as well up to about 1,200, 1,300 meters, which for lowlanders like you and me is enough. You don't need to do the Col d'Izoire and go up to 2,500 meters unless you really want to. But no, this is quiet roads, good asphalt in general for French standards. They do have an interesting way of repairing roads, actually, because they just fix one place, and then after about a month, that same place is damaged again, and then they fix it again. It's like a patchwork quilt. That is exactly what the roads are. If you ride on French roads, and in my case that is rather slow, you see that it's actually patchwork. It's like, oh, there's a little bit of new asphalt there, oh, like over here, and then we just add a little bit of blue asphalt there, and everybody's happy. It's not really a solution for the ages, unless the Tour de France passes. Then everything and everybody comes out to put on a brand new layer of tarmac for the riders in the Tour de France to enjoy.
The smoothest roads. Everyone in the region will be happy when the Tour comes. They'll have all brand new roads. And also one of the things they do on French roads is just all these little stones, and they basically wait till all the cars have ridden them solid into the road. It's called gravillou. But if you're there with your race tires, your bike tires, these nasty, pesky little things are not great. You get flat tires, and on descents, it's like descending on gravel. It is, and like you say, the descending is actually the worst on that type of tarmac. I mean, what we're seeing here, relatively good road surface and pretty smooth from what we can see here from this camera angle. But like you say, when they've put down the stone chippings and almost glued it to the road, it's terrible especially for descending, but also just really feels very sticky. The roads feels very
especially when it's hot.
Harsh roads.
Especially when it's hot, you can actually end up with a part of your road on your tires. We're almost at the top of the climb of Col de la Justice with our breakaway, and if you look at the evolution of the time gap that Pro Cycling Stats always provides, it's been completely stable for the past 30 kilometers. So that means that these 3 teams at the front, although we see a new team there with Cofidis also joining the fun, but up until now it was Trek Segafredo, Groupama FDG and EF Education Easy Post. Those teams, they are using 1, maybe 2 riders, are not losing any time. So they need extra riders. And I think that they know their history as much as we do, that Rémi Cavagna has pulled the stunt before, and if you don't catch him, you won't see him until you look at the podium in about 2 hours' time.
He's such an incredibly strong, powerful rider who's able to sustain this type of effort for such a long period of time, and he's one of those riders where you have to start to make some inroads into that time gap sooner rather than later, or at least get it fully under control, because despite several teams putting riders up towards the front and committing 2 or 3 riders for a chase and just to control the time gap, it has stayed and remained steady at the moment. And when you take a look at the climbs that we've still got to come and just how difficult it is, especially towards the back end of the race and the 3 climbs that come on that larger loop, or the final loop. It's and as it becomes, the roads are more narrow, you're onto sort of almost farm roads, you've got some longer descents as well, where it's going to be difficult to make any effect into the time gap there. They need to start to do it sooner rather than later.
It's Tony Galopin and Julien Bernard, the 2 French riders for Trek Segafredo, at the front of the bunch. Like I said, they're here with Matthias Skelmos, of course. He had a pretty solid start to the season as well. Cataldo is here, and also Quinn Simmons, who also won a stage already early January in Argentina. Pretty impressive solo attack there by the man from America. And the previous winner of the Tour of Rwanda, there he is, Nathanael Tesfacion, in that lovely new kit of Trek Segafredo. There's a lot of red going on in the peloton, but this is a different kind of red, and it's more white.
At least there's some white.
Yeah, very helpful. Yeah,
it's almost like we've got teams of 18, isn't it, with several teams who have all opted for the red-orange colours this year.
Yeah, it's really fun because I saw this tweet of Villeneuve cycling journalist Sivo Shea having a picture of, it was Bardiani, it was Bahrain, Arkea and Trek,
Ineos.
I think, and Ineos. It's like, are we allowed to bring 21-man strong teams to the race right now? And that was exactly it. It's like they looked exactly the same, and especially if you look at helicopter shots, it's it's a pretty difficult thing. Groupama FDJ, they really stand out. They're here with a team with David Gaudu, the 2021 winner, Bruno Armirail, Romain Grégoire, young Lenny Martinez, Quentin Paché, Mathieu Ladagnou, and Lorenzo Germani. So a little bit of a mix of their first-year pro riders like Grégoire, Martinez, and Germani, and some of their more experienced riders, including Mathieu Ladagnou, who has embarked on his 16th season with this team. Yeah, he's part of the furniture, is what we say in Dutch.
Certainly at home.
Yeah, he's at home, and he's one of those riders. Robert Geesink, for example, is also one of those riders who's been with the same team his entire career. And I really like teams appreciating their domestiques, because you need guys, this is not ladder news by the way, but you need guys who ride at the front. Otherwise, Gaudu has no shot of actually winning it.
Absolutely. I often think that about Luke Rowe, who spent his entire career at formerly Team Sky, now Ineos Grenadiers, where they really are part of the furniture, and they're such a valuable member and asset to the team that as a domestique, as a road captain, quite like Kwiatkowski as well, being with Ineos Grenadiers.
Exactly.
Whilst they're not in this race, it's just you can see how valued they are as riders.
Quentin Simmons there, even beardier than before. I think his beard is still in winter mode because it's quite lavish at the moment, Hannah. They did wind tunnel testing with riders with beards. You know that.
What was the outcome?
That it doesn't matter for aerodynamics. And especially, of course, he doesn't wear a specialized helmet. But if he would put on a specialized socky helmet, the sock helmet, it would just completely smoothen his beard, and it would be aerodynamic anyways. But they did research in wind tunnels, and it didn't really make all that much of a difference. So Quinn Simmons can be as beardy as he wants, and of course he has got the Spring Classics in mind. This is also the kind of race that he could do well, but he is clearly domestiquing, if that is a verb, at the moment.
Skelmoser, I really think that Trek Segafredo have one of the strongest teams with two options of different ways in which to win. And I think Quinn Simmons taking the confidence from his stage victory in Argentina at the beginning of the season, I think they have that dual leadership between the two.
Yeah, most definitely. Valentin Ferron is taking a little bit of a turn as we pass the cimetière, the cemetery. There's always usually my dedicated stop at bike rides, a cemetery. Often because they have tap water, Not always, but quite often they do. And cemeteries in France are well visited, even the ones that look completely deserted, because it's a Catholic country, and a Catholic faith has a little bit of a tradition to keep visiting the graves, you know, on the 1st of November, but also on Mother's Day, Father's Day. So there's always people using that particular tap. So there's usually clean water. You can go completely wrong with it, but if you smell it and it smells foul, just don't do it. Goes with cheese. That doesn't go with cheese anyway, that rule, but it does go with water or milk.
You've got all the facts here, Zay. All the facts.
Oh yeah, I've been riding in a lot of departments in France, and this one is still quite populous. But there are places in France where there's hardly any people living, so you really have to plan where you can get your next drink, and cemeteries often are a good place for that.
And I often think around in this region and in this area, there's so much beautiful countryside, but villages or populated villages are sort of few and far between in parks.
Exactly. I was at Paris-Nice last year for work, and there was a big demonstration during one of the stages, and it was about the only village doctor leaving the town. And that is a big problem of these less populated areas, that a lot of the facilities, including a town doctor, are becoming a little bit of a problem. So there was a big demonstration going on there in this same region, by the way. It was stage number 6, about the village doctor leaving. The gap is coming down a little bit at the moment. We are approaching the 4-minute mark. The man at the front is called the TGV of Clermont-Ferrand, and the TGV, for those of you watching and not familiar with French infrastructure, is the high-speed train service here in France. The train à grande vitesse, a train with high speed, is actually the translation, and they are really popular in France, especially with sales representatives, but also just go on holiday. The network is fantastic. You go 300 kilometers an hour, which is 200 miles an hour, and there's a fantastic network that brings you to all corners of France. It's a really great system. But he's called the TGV of Clermont-Ferrand, where he's from, for a reason, and that is because he does these things.
Certainly brings the speed, doesn't he? And I believe in France now that some domestic flights are banned because the train service is so good that they've banned short-haul travel.
Yeah, exactly. That it's also in a lot of companies, it's actually not allowed to take domestic flights anymore due to environmental reasons, which is really great. And in Europe as a whole, they're really working very hard on their train connections, having night trains back from example, Amsterdam to Vienna or Berlin, or even to Barcelona is a new network that they want to create to get people on the train. Valentin Ferrand, you might have seen him on the internet as the man dangling from a bridge in the Étoile de Bessèges, that huge crash that we had. And he was dangling off the bridge. In the end, it was only a meter or so to the ground, but of course he couldn't see that. So that was a little bit of a clip that went viral with Valentin Ferrand. The day afterwards, he was second on the stage, so he did recover well, luckily for him. Great job there done by EF Education Easy Post on the national champions jersey of Merabi Kudus, and of that of Esteban Chavez as well. A really standout, contrary to a team from the Middle East that shall not be named.
I really like how they make the national champions jersey so prominent.
Yeah,
Love
exactly.
Make it stand out.
Hannah, I'm just listening to the tunes that we have here at the finish line. I have no idea if you can listen to them at home. But we're now into Cyndi Lauper with Girls Just Want to Have Fun. which is great because you don't always get an all-female duo on men's races. So this could be our anthem right now.
It certainly is. We're certainly enjoying ourselves. We're treated to a tremendous weekend of racing on Eurosport and GCN this weekend. I was looking through how many races the fans have got to be able to feast their eyes on. It's quite incredible, really.
Yeah, if you have 24 hours in a day, like I have, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But of course, this morning we started with the UAE Tour, and we have the race in Galicia for you to enjoy on our digital platforms after you finish this one, or maybe you already watched it yesterday. Well, Jonas Vingegaard, that was impressive, Hannah. It was like he wanted to say to Tadej Pogačar, okay, you started your season, now I'm here, let me show you something.
It was very, very impressive, and the way in which he won, and looking at how the group was so whittled down by that point. But yeah, great for him, I think, coming into a season, taking a victory already and so early on. Does wonders for riders' confidence as well, because if you've seen your rivals winning early on in the season and you've come into a new season as having won the Tour de France the year before previous, and then just losing out at the Crow race towards the back end of the season for Jonas, I think great for him to already have that victory early on.
There was a little bit of discussion whether Pogačar was not too good too soon. One of the voices that mingled in that discussion was former sports director Johan Browneel. I thought the article that I read on the website La Course en Tête was really good. Why should it be only about the Tour de France? The young guys like Pogačar is somebody who actually loves bike racing. He just wants to ride and win as many bike races as he can. And why should we be bothered whether that is 3 stages in Andalusia, and why should we wait until July to see him in action?
I totally agree. I'd seen that article, and I thought it was a brilliant article from I believe it was Peter Crossins who'd made those comments on the website. And
he did.
What we're seeing now is riders are coming to races to race and to win races. I feel like we're going away from doing a race as a training race. And
there's no training races anymore.
There's no training races anymore. So I think we, as fans of cycling, of the races, as anyone who goes to spectate, they're really treated to high quality racing. They've always got an incredible field. I mean, you take a look how many races are on this weekend, and in this race alone, we've got so many big name riders across the big teams, and when you take a look, the 13 World Tour teams, 6 Pro teams, and 2 Continental teams, it's a real treat to have the such quality spread throughout all the racing on a weekend where you've got 4 or 5 races on.
Yeah, because I didn't even finish my my summary. Galicia's on. We have this race, and of course, Omloop het Nieuwsblad, both men and women's race. I hope that they will be done in time, Hannah, with this race, so we can enjoy the Omloop het Nieuwsblad for women coverage straight after.
Brilliant.
Absolute fantastic timing for us there, because that is, of course, also pretty exciting. I counted no less than 6 events, also with the highlights from Rwanda coming up, and a little bit of a shake-up today in the general classification as we approach the final 2 stages in Kigali. And of course, in 2 years' time, we'll have the World Championships in Kigali. And if you just want to take a look at the Twitter feed of Tour du Rwanda, you can see the scenes already. This is their national race. In 2 years' time, when we go there for the World Championships, it will be completely crazy scenes there on the Mur de Kigali.
It's spine-tingling, isn't it? The crowds, the passion, the emotion that they bring to the roadside is spectacular.
We're under the 70 kilometers to go mark, and the gap is now under the 4-minute mark. Normally, everything would still be completely under control, but the man there in the blue and white of Soudal Quickstep is really somebody special. He is the former national champion. He's the former national time trial champion. He's done this before, and he is a super, super strong rider. But yeah, of course, once you've done this once or twice, you don't fly under the radar anymore in the peloton. You are an established name, and the peloton knows what they have with you in a breakaway. The breakaway actually established straight from the start, and that was because we had a pretty solid uphill start, starting with 10 kilometers of climbing at 4.3%, then a little bit of a plateau, and then another 2 kilometers to go at 4%. So that was a pretty decent start, and we ended up with a very strong duo at the front. There's no mistaking about that. This is not some breakaway. Valentin Ferrand might be the more unknown rider of the two, but he is a strong rider, although from what we've seen in the breakaway, Hannah, it looks like Cavagna is doing a little bit more work.
It was looking like that earlier on, wasn't it? When we got a real long look at that duo out front, and he was pulling and doing the longer of the turns, and it really does put the pressure on the teams behind, as we see now Uno X starting to move up in the yellow on the right-hand side of the screen as we look at it. So several teams wanting to assist here, but also when you see that descent that the breakaway duo are on, there's only so much room for so many riders, and everybody wants to make sure that they're out of trouble. When it starts to narrow, as you see a few technical parts on that descent too, and also with the road surface.
Yeah, I was looking at that little bridge there that the two riders in the lead just passed. That is, of course, where mayhem really struck in Étoile de Bessèges, that very narrow bridge, a little bit of a tense, nervous situation. And this is not the kind of race where you have done a recon. It is true that we are on a local loop and that they have done this part before. And then we return back to the finish line at 37 kilometers to go. And then we do one more loop that Hannah described as being the one with the steepest walls, which is absolutely true. So they have been here before, but these narrow bridges that the peloton is now approaching are always a little bit of a pinch point and make me hold on to my seat just a little bit tighter.
I'm curious as to how much information that Pierre Latour has been able to give to Valentin Ferrand, because he's the local rider within Total Energy, and I'm sure will have ridden these loops on a number of occasions and knows quite a few of the roads that they're racing on today. Likewise, I was speaking to Laura Asencio, who is a female professional racing in Belgium this weekend, but it's quite literally on her doorstep, this race, and she was saying that these roads, they're brilliant training roads. They're very, very quiet, but they are narrow, they are twisty, as we can see on this descent here, and there is a few pinch points along the way.
Yeah, that must be funny that you're racing Omloop het Nieuwsblad and tomorrow Omloop van het Hageland, and then you have a big bike race on your doorstep. But of course, these are professional bike riders. They have to earn their keep and race in Belgium. So that race will, of course, be on after we finish. And yeah, the men's race. I'll just have to stay off Twitter to avoid any spoilers on Omloop het Nieuwsblad. Big new sponsor there on the behind of Remy Cavagna, which has become, Hannah, you have been in bike team sponsoring, a more prominent place to put your sponsorship on the behind. It's something that we've seen more and more recently, and as you can see with Cavagna as well, bigger than ever before.
I think it's one of the most valuable places for a sponsor to have their brand, their advertising, their logo. It's it's prominent. It's a prominent placing, and we're seeing more and more that the teams know how important that part of the all-in-one, the skin suit, the bib shorts, whatever they might be wearing, and just how important it is, not just the logos on the front of the jersey.
The new team at the front of the bunch at the moment are the Norwegian-Danish ensemble of Uno X, led by Jesper Mokhoff, the brother of. Torsten Treen is here, Marcus Hansen, Adna Holter, Jakob Metzen, Frederik Dversnish and Niklas Ek. So this is a part of their climbing corps. Of course, they also have a team in Belgium racing. I do think that Christoph is ill, but they have another fantastic sprinter there. And of course, it's going to be their year because they got a wild card for the Tour de France, which is a huge, huge achievement. Last year for the first time with the women, and now both the men's and the women's UNOX team will be racing the Tour de France. A testimony of a good project with a good vision there.
Well deserved. And I have to say, they're a team that won't just go to the Tour de France to look for breakaways and getting the television minutes or hours. They will really go there with big and high ambitions of trying to come away with a result and really be mixing it up and doing the damage there, as per se.
And now the gap is coming down steadily as we are looking at the bright red Specialized of Valentin Ferrand, a 25-year-old from France. He was born in Vienne, but actually got his race education in Poitiers, which is a little bit more to the west. As a junior, he already had his first podium in the Ober-Österreich-Rundfahrt, or the Upper Austria Tour. One of the most prominent youth junior tours in the world, actually. And he also won stages in the amateur circuit and then turned pro with Total Energy. He also was part of the development team there called Vendée U. Vendée is one of the regions in France closely linked to Total Energy. That is their feeder team. It's not a continental team like the development teams of, for example, Groupama FDJ. They are a continental team. They're an amateur team, DN1, Division Nationale, number 1, but a lot of great talent coming through the ranks there for the Total Energy team. They are here not only with Ferrand, but also the man of the region, like you said, Pierre Latour, Alexis Viermos, Jérémy Cabot, Fabien Doubet, Alain Jouzaume, and Paul Ourselin. Those are the riders, and look at that. That is a bridge that you don't want to cross on your bike. It's beautiful.
Stunning. It really is a stunning region here. The countryside, the nature, the mountains, it really has got it all. You can kayak down the Ardèche as well, close by.
Yeah, most definitely.
I have done that. I've done that.
You have done the touristy thing?
I have. High school trip it was.
with the big half bridge there that you have in the background of your school of your school trips there. The next climb that we're going to do is actually at the end of our local lap. That is in about 22 kilometers. It's called the Sommet de Val d'Enfer. And if you translate that, it's actually called the Valley of Hell, Val d'Enfer. So I don't know what we can expect here. I don't know what we can expect here, but the name is promising, though.
It certainly is a difficult climb to finish with, and that's the one that we will crest with around just over 6 kilometres to go. The one that we were speaking of earlier, Jose, of maximum gradients of upwards of 14%, and the riders have done this already, or will be coming up to 2 occasions before that final time. So they will know this climb well. They'll, as I say, they'll have already done it on 2 occasions before that final time. So positioning is crucial. But the steepest part of that climb comes with around 700 metres to go until you crest the top of the climb. And when you see an average of close to 10%, I think it tells you everything that you need to know of just how difficult the climb is.
Yeah, for me, that is the moment that I'm just getting off my bike and walk. But that's just me. 8 degrees, that's about 44 Fahrenheit today, and still very little sunshine. It looks like it's improving just a little bit, but luckily for the riders, it's dry. We have had rain in these races. We have had snow. We have had hail even. So I think the riders will be perfectly content with these temperatures. And Hannah, when it's 8 degrees at the start was at 11 this morning, how do you make your choices for what to wear? Because for a pro cyclist, that's always a big thing. What kind of garments do I take out of my extensive collection?
It's always a talking point, isn't it? And making sure that you're comfortable. You see some riders, they've still got their leg warmers on. They're wearing a lot more items of clothing. You can see one of the riders there from Groupama FDJ, so centre of your screen with the leg warmers on and the longs. Whereas other riders, they've opted for shorts. Predominantly everybody that I've seen so far, everyone's got arm warmers on. I always think if you start with arm warmers, a gilet over the top of your jersey, you can always discard of those and put them in your back of your pocket or give it to one of the soigneurs at the side of the road later on into the race if you feel that you're heating up. And I think we'll start to see riders discarding of their gilets or long sleeves the closer we get to the finish line, and it's almost go time, it's racing time.
And just admiring that rather wonderful jersey for Meravi Kudus. The fact that he has got arm warmers and leg warmers might also mean that he is not the kind of guy who should be doing the final. Because getting leg warmers off is a little bit of a hassle, is it?
Oh, it's a massive hassle. It certainly is. I've seen riders do it, though, very, very well on the move. Others not so much. But likewise with the Kudus, you can see as well he's got his toe warmers on, others with full overshoes. I think one of the best items of kit, I think, toe warmers.
I love them. I don't really like shoe warmers because my calves are too big for the average shoe warmer. I just can't close the zipper, and it's usually not the heel of the foot that's cold. It's the front. And the great thing about the toesies is also that it closes off that little hole that you have under your cleats, so the water doesn't flow into your shoes like I had this morning. It's really great as a commentator to have a little bit of first-hand experience. It's what I do for this job, Hannah. It's what I do.
You certainly were out in the elements this morning, weren't you? I think the weather gods lied to you.
They did. Well, the rain radar lied to me because apparently it was going to be a bright sunny day. Well, maybe somewhere else. 3 minutes now, 63 kilometers, and judging from the body language there of Ferrand, he's getting a little bit more tired. Of course, this is about the 100-kilometer mark of their breakaway. The attack came straight after the start in the town of Guilherand-Grange. That's also where we have our finish in 63 kilometers, and the only reason we are here and have been here for a couple of years is that Faun, which is the name giver of this race, is a big company doing all sorts of environmental issues. They have purifying systems, they have garbage disposal systems. They're active in both Germany and France, and they have one of their big factory office thingies just outside of Guilherand-Grange, where we are racing today. Still over jackets, we just discussed this, still jackets for our two riders at the front. And Hannah, it's maybe a law in cycling, but of course being in a breakaway of two is never great, because you have to work so hard. You don't have a lot of relaying to do, actually.
You don't have that time to really recover, because and also with it being these two riders who have been out front since the breakaway had gone away, they've never had that assistance or help. But I have to say, both of these riders are committed. I think they both have strong teams who are keeping themselves ready and patient should things all come back together, both on Soudal Quickstep and Total Energy. Really puts the pressure, I think, onto some of the bigger teams. It's quite traditional in these types of races where we'll see maybe the pro teams, the second division teams, or a third division team, the likes of Unant Atlantique, one of those teams to be in the breakaway. But today,
the start was just too hard.
It was a very, very difficult, demanding start. Straight away uphill.
Kudus and Galopin are the two riders taking turns at the front of the bunch. Gradually our gap is coming down for our two leaders, Rémi Gavagna, the 27-year-old from France, and his 24-year-old compatriot Valentin Ferron. He turned pro in 2020 with Team Total Direct Energie. This is a contract year for him, so that's always an important year. And he started the season with a trio of French races that you've been able to watch here on Eurosport, Discovery Plus and GCN Plus, with Grand Prix La Marseillaise, where he was second. He was in Étoile de Bessèges and also the Tour des Alpes Maritimes et du Var. He's on the list to do Paris-Nice, which starts a week from now. What was that? Was that Santa Claus? Was it?
I was just about to say, was that Santa Claus?
Maybe it was Gandalf. I don't know. Can we have a replay of that? Strange people on sides of roads.
Perhaps an impersonation of Didi the Devil. Who knows? Hopefully, we'll see it again when the peloton passes.
Yeah, let's look at the left side of the road in about 2 minutes' time. But about Ferron, he had his first win in the Tour of Rwanda 2 years ago, and last year, of course, the biggest win to date in the Critérium du Dauphiné, where he attacked from a breakaway and held off Pierre Rolland and Warren Barguil, two legends of French cycling. Sadly, Rolland not with us anymore in the peloton, retired after the B&B Hotels thing, but was second in that stage in Dauphiné, which was, of course, the biggest victory to date for this man in Gap. That was in the south of France. Great job there by Meravi Kudus. Very international team. 12 nationalities in the EF Education Easy Post. One of their riders is Simon Carr. And I found it funny that on their website they have like a joint British and French flag. He is British, his parents are British, but he grew up in France, so he has a bit of a joint flag on the website. And of course, EF Education is an education business, and I know them predominantly from their travels that you can go to high school, for example, in the US, or my sister-in-law went with them to Norway. She learned to speak Norwegian. And that's what they do, and they have a very international roster as well to boast.
I don't know about you, Jose, but when I'm in a train station or an airport and I see something related or a sponsor that's related to cycling, I'm always like, oh, great to see them. But I remember seeing someone with an with an EF Education backpack, completely separate to cycling, as we take a look at the three chases from earlier on. Niels Bruin just on the back there for Tudor Pro Cycling, Noah Isadore and Florian Rapeteau.
A little bit of credit for them. It's great how many cycling brands you see around you, isn't it? And when we built this house, we also had quite a few cycling brands installed, which is funny. And maybe consciously, but most likely subconsciously, you do buy the brand that you know, and that is, of course, marketing psychology and marketing philosophy after all these sponsorships. Like, oh, I know Quickstep, I know that brand, I've known them for 20 years, and I might need that brand, or have Hansgrohe showers, or stuff like that. And that's how it works. And I do hope that cycling fans also reward the sponsors by buying the products.
Moving billboards, I always say. Cyclists, they're one of the best ways to grow the knowledge to the spectators, the fans, those around the world of different brands, and a great marketing campaign.
Especially since cycling is one of those rare sports, as we are in Saint-Romain-des-Lers. We're going to be here again, but then do it from the other side, if I'm correct. I think we are going to do counterclockwise the second time around. But yeah, cycling sponsorship, of course, some teams have like 10, maybe even 15 sponsors on their jersey. Some have just a few, like Ineos. But this is the kind of fun that we are going to watch in the final of this race. The gap is coming down. I don't really believe anymore, Hannah, that these two riders are going to stay at the front. I think themselves they would have hoped to have a little bit of a bigger breakaway as well.
They would have hoped to have maybe had a little bit more of a buffer at this point, but I still say that once we start to get towards that back end of the race, and when you've got these steep descents as well, some of the technical roads that the riders will face, and especially with it being so difficult in that final 8 kilometres until the finish line, you can already start to see just also how fast it is in the peloton at the moment. Still, EF Education up towards the front, likewise with Trek Segafredo. Unuek still there with their riders on the left-hand side of the road in the yellow jerseys. Also Intermarché is just starting to move up there. You can see with the white and the fluorescent yellow jerseys.
Can't be missed, especially not with that bar tape. That is great bar tape. I like it. It's very fluo. I had yellow bar tape last year in honour of the first Tour de France Femmes, and I got so many remarks about that people loved it. It's a bit bold. It can become a little bit dirty, but it's really great to have bright bar tape. Yeah, the Intermarché 1T team, they are here with the former world champion Rui Costa. Also, Lilian Calmejean, he has been on the podium here before, winning the race in 2019, coming in third the year before. They have from their development team Francesco Bussato, Laurens Huis, Lorenzo Rota, also a man in form at the moment, the Italian, and Georg Zimmermann. Those are the riders of the Intermarché 1T team. And of course, they can mix their riders, Hannah, as a World Tour team with a development team. And that's what they can do in these races. Oh, this is getting a little bit chaotic there with the musettes.
Nasty. Yeah, see riders discarding of some of their clothing as well. And that's one year who's trying to give out a bottle. And yeah, it could have been messy, but everyone's fine. To answer your comment there, Jose, about teams being able to mix their development riders with their world teams, I think it's brilliant. We saw one of the riders just moments ago towards the back of the peloton in the black jersey of Team DSM, Max van der Meulen. He's part of their development team, Team DSM. Only 19 years of age, but he's having that opportunity. He's been given that taster of the high level racing. This is a Point Pro race here, also his first race of the season, so certainly straight into the deep end for the 19-year-old Dutchman.
Yeah, an impeccable pronunciation there, Anna. Absolutely spot on.
Thank you all.
Julien Bernard, he's always very recognisable there at the front of the peloton with his big beard. It's not as luscious as Quinn Simmons is, but it's still very recognisable. 55 kilometres, we are 10 kilometres out from the climb of Val d'Anvers, which is 1.5 kilometres, and it's going to give us 10.3%. This is going to be the final as well of today's stage. So after that climb, we have a very fast descent. Well, basically we have one little descent and then another small climb, and then we go really, really straight down towards the finish line, which is alongside the Rhône River. We could just see on the shot down there that the river is, of course, there in the valley. So that climb is, I'm going to watch that with interest, because that's going to give us an indication of that final already.
It will give us an indication of the final, but also I'm really curious to see how the riders take it down the descent and the twisty turning in towards the finish line, because there's a few corners in that final 3 kilometres where you really need to be up towards the front. Positioning is really crucial. It could really catch some riders out, and you could start to see splits starting to form. We then have around 10 kilometres of flat when the riders are in the valley before we take on the Mur de Cornas. That's 1.9 kilometres long, average gradient of 8.3%. So we're really seeing a pattern emerge on all of these climbs where almost every climb is double digits in terms of its steep gradient.
Oh, jolly. There it is, the valley of the Rhone River, and we are in the national park here of the Faun-Ardèche, so the mountains of the Ardèche, which is the department here, and of course also the name giver of this race. Tomorrow we go to the other side of the river, to Drôme, which is also interesting. Today they brought, for example, Hannah, on a team Cofidis, trying to find them on my start list. They brought, tomorrow they brought, now I'm completely confused. I'm looking at Akea Samsic, but they are, I read that they brought their sprinter, but they didn't. So I'm now completely confused. Maybe it's tomorrow.
Yeah, with Cofidis today, they've got Guillaume Martin, Eddie Finet, Remy Rocha, Victor Lafay, Axel Mariol, Anthony Perez and Thomas Champion. Brilliant name. Brilliant name for a rider with Champion. Still around 3 kilometers of descending towards the valley, towards the River Rhone for this duo out front here, Remy Cavagna and Valentin Ferron. You can see how beneficial it is for these riders to have already done this descent, knowing where and how fast you can take some of these corners, which line to take. Both of these riders have been sharing the workload very well throughout their breakaway, over 100 kilometers. And you can see from this wonderful helicopter shot just how stretched out the peloton is in the chase behind, all in one long line, spread across 350 meters as we head towards one of the lowest points of this region at around 40 meters above sea level. That's where the Ardèche flows into the Rhone. One of the highest points in the region, 1,754 meters up towards Mount Mazen in those mountains. You can see it's a fast pace, Jose.
Yeah, but even higher than I thought it was, 1,700 meters. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the final hour of racing here. There's really spectacular racing, and I do hope that Remy doesn't take my comment in a bad way. Of course, doing a 47 kilometer solo on this course is absolutely amazing, but I think everybody also likes a little bit of a race, and this course is spectacular. We have so many amazing riders here. Jai Hindley, for example, is racing here for Bora Hansgrohe.
I think between the teams who are sitting back at the moment, we haven't seen too much of Bora Hansgrohe yet. Sergio Higuita also could be a brilliant one for Bora Hansgrohe. Jai Hindley, like you say. But there's others as well who are here. Esteban Chavez, we've seen that EF Education Easy Post have been riding and committing to the chase for many, many kilometers. But also, likewise, I'm really curious to see how someone like Matteo Sobrero of the team Jayco Alula does on this course. Romain Bardet, I think if he wants any chance of trying to win the race today. So we see a replay of one of the riders from Trek Segafredo discarding of the clothing as well as trying to take a beat on.
It's multitasking that luckily went well. It's what we discussed before, Hannah, isn't it? That this is about the moment that a lot of riders are getting rid of their vests or even their jackets because the final is starting. Look at that. These are the vignettes there on the the hills leading up from the Rhone River. Saint-Péray is actually quite a famous wine region. We've got 3 different vintages here. I'm not a wine expert, but Saint-Péray is famous, and it's, if I'm correct, also a cheese, which I'm more interested in, as you may know by now. I do the cheese and I don't do the wine, Hannah. It's it might be blasphemy, but I'm just not a wine person. I'm a cheese person.
At least you do one of the two.
We had a cheese fondue, a restaurant not far from where we lived a couple of years ago, and they actually had either wine or water. That was the only option they gave. You couldn't get a Coke, because having cheese fondue and a Coke, it gets into all sorts of weird concoctions inside your stomach. So it was either wine or nothing. So they were purists in that respect. Tony Galopin is, of course, one of the most experienced riders in the peloton. A man who wore the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, won stages in the Tour, and is now one of those super strong domestiques, doing a lot of work for Trek Segafredo, as we are in the town of Saint-Péray, on our way to the Sommet du Val d'Anvers. It's a short one, but it's Mur de Huy steep. I think the gradients are comparable to what we are going to see in a couple of weeks in Flèche Wallonne.
Certainly is. The maximum on that climb around 13%. The elevation gain to there is around 260 meters, so 1.9 kilometers long, average of 8.3%.
1:40 all of a sudden for our two leaders, Rémi Gavagna and Valentin Ferrand. Gavagna is a man who is 27. He was born in August of 1995, and it was pretty clear straight from the start that he had a very strong time trial. He also did a little bit of mountain biking. He is from Clermont-Ferrand, and if I recall correctly, that is the place where we're going to start the Tour de France Femmes this year, in the city of Clermont-Ferrand. So that is, if you look at the middle of France, a little bit to the south of there, it's going to be an absolutely epic edition going into the Pyrenees. But that is a side note. He is from Clermont-Ferrand in the department of Puy-de-Dôme, the volcanic region there. So perfect mountain biking terrain. But he went on to go for road cycling. Excellent time trialist, and a winner, of course, of the French national title as well. Rémi Gavagna has been with the team of Patrick Lefevre for a while now. He started his career with the development team that was still out there. They do have a development team again now, but in 2016 it was called after Patrick Lefevre's favorite wine, Klein Constantia. So he's from that development team in 2016 and joined the World Tour at a pretty young age, and has been with the Belgian team ever since.
You see the damage that Trek Segafredo are doing through Saint-Péray at the moment.
Isn't it?
With two, it is, and it's two distinct groups. You can just see that second group coming through the roundabout with several riders who are desperately chasing to try and get themselves back into this first group of the peloton.
It's Galopin, followed by Julien Bernard, followed by Galopin, and we're looking out for the man with number 61. He is on a very fast track in his career, Matthias Skelmose. On his wheel we find the former world champion, Julian Alaphilippe. Also moving to the front is Rui Costa, who also had a win this season. It's been a while that he won a race, but he's one of those older riders that they really got going again with Intermarché-Wanty winning a race again. There he is, Julian Alaphilippe. Interesting from today's column in Het Nieuwsblad by Nicky Terpstra about the comments by Lefevre to Julian Alaphilippe, is that Nicky Terpstra said, yeah, Patrick has been doing this for 20 years. He almost word for word said the same to me. Isn't it about time that, in this case, Julian Alaphilippe should start winning? And he think it motivates, and Terpstra kind of agrees with that, because you shouldn't be motivated by these words, he said in his column, but you do. And maybe it works with Alaphilippe as well, but I think, and this is something that a former colleague of mine said, Dave Everett, I think he will be with Team TotalEnergies next year. They're racing specialised. Peter Sagan's salary is not necessary anymore. On a French team, a French captain, I think it is a logical step, especially since Soudal Quickstep are morphing more and more into a Grand Tour squad and need climbers. And not that Alaphilippe is not a climber, just like Terpstra said in his column, Julien can do anything on a good day. Win time trials, win classics, win world championships. But yeah, I think he might leave the team after this year. I've got a feeling about that.
When you see Julien Alaphilippe happy, he's always able to perform. It doesn't matter what the type of terrain. And when he's really happy with his environment, with himself, he feels in good shape, he can do everything. And like you just said, Jose, whether that's on climbs, in Grand Tours, one-day races, time trialling, he's quite a complete rider. I think when things aren't going right, though, as you can just see him up towards the front in this group, when things aren't going to plan and he's not feeling too good,
can you blame him?
He's never able to pull it off. Absolutely not.
Can you blame him? You've seen that crash last year in Liège. You were on commentary that day. It was absolutely horrific, and it took him a really, really long time to get back up to speed. And the talent and panache of somebody like Alaphilippe is not gone. It's still there, and he will show us again what he's capable of. 58 seconds. It's almost time that Bernard and Galopin have done their job. It's now up to Nathanael Tesfacion, the new rider for the team from Eritrea, to do a little bit of work at the front. And look at that. You can't go any further to the left there on the bike there of Valentin Ferrand. These are the 13% kind of gradients that, yeah, look at that. This is what it is. Côte du Val d'Envers, 1.7, average 9.3, max 14%. This is smallest cog that you can possibly put on your bike. Great shot here. You can actually see from this shot, Hannah, how steep it is.
And just how much elevation that they've gained since climbing out of Saint-Péray. It's a very, very steep climb, but also they've got the wind in their favour here. It's a tailwind all the way up this climb as we start to see a move from Arkea Samsic at the moment, but still Trek Segafredo just keep it at their own tempo, their own rhythm.
They will catch the two leaders, and then a completely new race is going to start. Trek Segafredo, I hope for them that Matthias Skjelmose can really finish it off, because they have really, well, I think, contributed to the chase. 70%. Done most work. Of course, EF Education have done a lot of work. And I must add, we haven't seen the peloton 100% of the time. It might just be a coincidence that we just saw Trek Segafredo at the front. But they have put in a lot of work in reeling these two Frenchmen back in. So let's hope for them that Matthias Skjelmose can really reap the benefits of all the work his teammates have done. They only started with 6 riders, so one rider short. Because there's a lot of illness going around the peloton. We see that in Belgium, we see it in France, not so much in the UAE Tour because it's a lot warmer there. Ooh, bit of a problem there for the television motorbike. Completely to a standstill there. That is a little bit of a problem for Motor 2, so we might be left without images of the peloton for a little while, because they have to get that one going. 31 seconds as we are almost on the top of this climb, just on the outskirts of Saint-Péray. The vineyards are waiting for a new spring and summer, but our two leaders are there, and they're not that far back. I think I remember this climb actually from Paris-Nice last year, but I'm not completely sure if we've done it last year in Paris-Nice. We have been here quite often in both the Tour de France and Paris-Nice. And of course, this is a fantastic climb, the Côte de Val d'Envers. And yet again, it translates as Valley of Hell. This is it, the top of the climb, and then we have a very short descent, and then a little bit of a climb up, just a very short one, and then this is the most important point, because in the next lap, this is going to be at 6 kilometers from the finish line, and those 6 kilometers are very technical downhill.
And you just saw a slight glimpse then of the breakaway duo, who now have 28 seconds on that descent, and just how narrow it is. We're almost on to single track farm roads, really. So you can see how crucial positioning will be.
Yeah, this is the roads normally used by the wine farmers, and that's it. These are not like through roads that are used quite often. So you can also see the edges of the road, Hannah, that they just end abruptly. So if you just off the edge of the road, you're just either in the sand or in a ditch.
There's quite literally no runoff, is there, for the riders? And as you can see, even just with one bike, as you see some of these nasty turns and corners, that it just shows how important, because you can see how much quicker Trek Segafredo were able to carry their speed through that corner. But then there's a knock-on effect at the back of that group, and just how strung out things are now. You're losing time, you're losing places, you end up having to make up the gaps later on. And I think if you're so far back on that final ascent and on this descent, consequently, this is incredibly difficult to come back from that.
One of the riders who could do an absolute stellar descent here is Julian Alaphilippe. I am very confident in his ability. Sadly, we don't have Nielsen Paulus in this race, the man who is a master descender. We saw that in La Marseillaise, we saw it in Étoile de Bessèges, and we saw it again in Haute-Var. A shame that he's not here, because this would be a perfect race for him. The final 6 kilometers, or actually the final 5 kilometers, because this is that little incline after the actual top of the climb, just a little bit, but just enough to kind of force you to go back to the small ring for this little ditty, and then it's straight down towards the river on, like you explained, farm roads. That's exactly what this is. But then if we look at the final, Hannah, the final few kilometers in the town, what did they look like? In France, you normally have like 1 million roundabouts.
We do have a few roundabouts, actually, in the final 3 kilometres. With around 3 kilometres to go, there's another slight kicker, upwards of 10% gradient, but it's that we have some sharp double bends that back onto yourself. As I say, one of the first roundabouts comes just as you go through 2 kilometres to go. Again, another one at 1 kilometre to go. Then you have a sharp right-hand turn with 500 metres to go. And it's the final roundabout that comes with around 250 metres until the finish line, which is going to be crucial. So it's they do love a roundabout, the road furniture as well. But again, that positioning just crucial for the riders. The wind coming on to the left-hand shoulder of the riders into this finish.
Look at these glorious images. We have lost the motorbike that is supposed to be with the peloton. So hopefully they will get it going. A little bit of a technical problem there on that steepest part of the climb. I don't know anything about motorbikes, so I probably cannot tell you what went wrong, but it takes a little bit of time to get it going, just like a car when you have to do your uphill thingy. I was stranded in Strade Bianche on Le Tolvet, that last bit of gravel, the last gravel section before you go into Siena, and my car it just stopped, and it was on that 13% part. So I was way ahead.
No
of the
way you're
peloton.
getting going again.
It was really difficult, but luckily I was a little bit of a damsel in distress there, and a lot of guys helped me out, and I got it going again on the climb. So I can imagine the panic that the motorbike or the pilot there has on that climb, because of course we want images back, and this is a great road to get back to the front. We're into the town there of Guilherand-Grange. So on the west bank of the river. I never really know whether it's the left or the right bank. It has to do with the direction of the river, whether it's the right or the or the left bank. So I just call it the western side to make my life easier. Really, really wide roads. And Hannah, if we look at this, it looks like there is a little bit of crosswind going on right here.
And also, it's looking like that chase where it's been a real concerted chase that you can see now. Trek Segafredo taking a look behind, likewise with Lotto Destiny, just trying to allow those riders who've been distanced to come back and then regain the chase. No one really wanting to take things up at the moment, as we're now onto this larger road.
We haven't really mentioned UAE. This is the first time we see them at the front right now. They're here with Diego Ulissi, who of course is one of the riders who could actually do really well in a course like this. George Bennett is here, Finn Fisher-Black, Ryan Gibbons and Davide Formolo. Felix Roos abandoned after 5 kilometers today. And this is it. This is the name giver of our race. And there you have it, all the waste disposal, garbage trucks and road cleaning equipment. That's what they produce, as we can see here. Somebody's got to produce a garbage truck. It's also a business, and it's great that they support a race like this. Almost over and out to 40 kilometers to go for our breakaway of the day. Rémi Gavagna, Valentin Ferron, and the gap was really, really stable up until about 70 kilometers from the finish line, when it was mostly Trek Segafredo doing the work there with Julien Bernard and Tony Galopin. These are nice wide roundabouts, Hannah. These are French roundabouts.
They are.
But it looks like they have a little bit of a headwind. It looks like they have a little bit of a headwind here in the final, which is absolutely detrimental to any escape.
And hence why nobody probably wanted to take it up on that wide road moments ago, where nobody wants to be doing that workload into such a strong, gusty headwind. And there you go. See, 24 kilometers per hour at the moment, directly into the face.
Attack there by Frederik Vandal. Frederik Vandal is our attacker. Also, Madsen is part of this group, as is Ramses de Bruyne. A little bit of a mix of the development and not World Tour anymore. A little bit of a mix of the development and pro team for Lotto Destiny here. Ramses de Bruyne is a youngster from their development team. Yeah, this is going to be really, really interesting, because if you want to attack over the hill, over the Val d'Envers sommet, you really have to have a pretty decent gap to survive these last 3 kilometers with a headwind. I think it's going to be almost impossible, actually.
Where we've seen in the past that we've had solo victors here in the Faun-Ardèche, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult. It's not to say it can or can't still happen, but I think it'll be incredibly difficult for a solo rider or even a duo. this climb. I can match it, I can stay here. And throughout the whole race today, I've noticed Gaudu has always had Julian Alaphilippe well within his sights. Whether he's been on the wheel or a couple of wheels back, he's always been there. And at the moment, it's Gaudu who's trying to put one to Alaphilippe now.
And of course, we say that Alaphilippe has the stronger sprint, but Gaudu has been impressive, and you still have to show it on the line, Hannah, that it's not a given, of course, that Alaphilippe is going to win this sprint with David Gaudu. Look at how strong
it's not, and also, wow.
There we go. There we go. There's a little bit of a kicker coming, and then it's a really fast downhill. The peloton, 1 minute and 5 back. It feels a little bit less than that, but let's see what the this looks like. Guillaume Martin currently there for the colours of Cofidis. Michael Woods is still there. Parepeintre, Rui Costa, and this is Kian Uiterbroeks, the winner of the Tour de l'Avenir last year with number 16. Like we saw on Mallorca, not a master descender. He was descending on the hoods, which was a little bit daunting to see, I should say. And he was a little bit afraid. It was absolutely horrendous weather circumstances there on Mallorca as well in that race with Kobe Goossens. But he lost about a minute there on the descent just because of sheer fear.
And some riders do. They really struggle with that descending, and on especially on a race like today, for example. Again, you can lose the wheel if your position isn't very, very good. And we saw before how much speed you can carry through some of the corners. If you're any further back and you do have a fear of descending, and you were saying before, Jose, that you really need to be an all-round complete rider. It's not just your physical strength and ability, but it's the psychological aspect. It's also the way and being able to descend and being a master descender we've seen so many times in the past.
And like Nicky Terpstra said in his column today ahead of the Omloop het Nieuwsblad, Lefebvre has a way of wanting to motivate his riders with these public statements like he did with Alaphilippe. He's earning a lot of money, he should give more return on investment, so to say. That was not the exact quote, but it was about Alaphilippe earning a lot of money and not really having the results last year. And like we said before, can you blame him? He was in pieces after Liège, propped up against that tree there on the side of the road. But unconsciously, Terpstra states in his column, this does something to you because you don't want it to work, that your manager says these things to you, but it does work. You do want to prove yourself. And of course, Alaphilippe is an absolute top athlete. He's a former world champion. Of course, he wants to show the world as well that his days are not over.
He's certainly not over, and I think it will have taken a lot out of him. Not just the physical aspects, but again, psychological, that awful crash in Liège, and trying to come back from that and get back to the top level. And we're seeing week in, week out, the top level of cycling. It's so difficult to win races. There's so many guys who they come into these races to win. There's no training races anymore. And at the moment, Schellemoser of Trek Segafredo, who had a victory only some days ago, is going in pursuit of the duo who are out front.
Yeah, but it's a little too late at the moment with just just over 3.5 kilometers to go. And especially if you're on your own, even with the headwind that we have after this descent, of course you're not going to breach across to the leaders. And they're racing smart. They are staying together all the way down to the Rhône River, one of the major rivers in France. And of course, already back in Roman times, it was the place for your town, actually. And Valence is one of those towns, actually, from Roman times. Just on the other side of the river, this is one of those commuter towns, Guillerin, Grange, where we're going to. Valence, it's about, I think, 100 kilometers, 120 down from Lyon, all the way to the south of France. And now the tactical games are starting, Hannah. We saw absolutely no signs of attrition on the face of of Gaudu, while Julian Alaphilippe has been making all sorts of faces.
He has, but he's always very animated, isn't he, with his facial expressions, Julian Alaphilippe, and we've already seen him do up the boa on his shoes. It shows he's getting ready for the sprint
his back,
and getting ready for this victory. Stretch, absolutely.
It's a little bit of mind play, is it? Like, oh, my back is hurting. I might not be as good as you think that I am. But also they have to be very careful not to be playing poker these final kilometers, because then a gap of a minute can just evaporate.
And especially into such a strong headwind here. We're basically in this headwind all the way until the finish, until we have that right-hand turn at around 500 meters to go. So this duo, they can't mess around too much, because you can see in the middle we've got two chasers at the moment. Then we've got that group of around 8 riders who, there's still movements, so there's still another 2 riders who are wanting to escape that chasing group again.
Mike Woods is very active at the front, the Canadian of Israel Premier Tech, talking about somebody who never gives up and just keeps on going. Mike Woods is, of course, one of those riders. But it's becoming almost impossible unless they come to an absolute track stand, still looking at each other and not wanting the other to start the sprint first. But so far they know they have to stay together until the finish, and they have to sprint it out. And because even attacking in these final 1.5 kilometers is a little bit of professional suicide if you try to go on your own right now.
It is, and I don't think either one of them are going to be able to get away from each other in this final 1,600 meters. You just saw as well, once they'd gone through that double turn, the right hand and then the left at the roundabout, they had that opportunity to take a look around, see if the chasers were in sight, see if the two at the moment who are pursuing leaders at the moment were almost upon them. Still a minute, and still movement from behind.
Yeah, but this is for third place right now. We have groups of riders in places. There we go, onto the Flamme Rouge with David Gaudu and Julian Alaphilippe. There is the Flamme Rouge, the red kite. Final kilometer is coming up in this rather entertaining edition of the Faun-Ardèche Classic. 168.6 kilometers. Gaudu is glancing over his shoulder. It is still a headwind. You can see it from the Flamme Rouge. And Alaphilippe is wanting to give the lead, or wanting actually to force the lead onto David Gaudu. Alaphilippe, he's far more experienced in winning bike races than his young compatriot David Gaudu, who's won 9 to date. 39 wins for Julian Alaphilippe. But they keep on riding all the way to the finish line. They are going to sprint it out on the line. They know that they have to keep riding. There's a little bit of reprieve from the wind there on the wheel of Gaudu, who's playing a little bit of mind games there. Alaphilippe is getting to the front. He wants to be the first one into that final turn that is coming up. Gaudu doing a little bit of fidgeting with his helmet, glancing over his shoulder still. He starts the day as a man maybe with some doubts, especially some doubts uttered by his management, by Patrick Lefevre. There goes the motorbike into the fixed cameras here, into the gates. There's no riders coming from the background. The commissaire is still behind them, knowing that the gap is still a minute. There we have a little bit of a drag sprint going on here. Alaphilippe, he is pulling his earpiece out. He doesn't want to hear Bramati screaming in his ear. He starts the sprint from first place. Gaudu is eyeing him. This is a very fascinating sprint. And there he goes, Julian Alaphilippe from the first. Can Gaudu actually match the speed of Alaphilippe? No. It's very unlikely, but he's going to try. Alaphilippe is going to try to match the sprint there. It's a very tight sprint. No, but in the end, it's Julian Alaphilippe winning. Career win, number 40 for the former world champion. David Gaudu comes in second place. Good sportsmanship there from the two French riders. Schelmoser here, together with Lafay. And there goes Schelmoser. He wants to be on that podium, the man from Denmark. Nice little sprint there from Matthias Schelmoser. Lafay on the wheel. Another podium place for Matthias Skjelmose. Just 30 seconds down in the end, but a third place for Skjelmose, no less. There we are with Romain Grégoire. Also crossing the finish line, we have Parapintre there. This is Guillaume Martin sprinting for minor placings. Rui Costa, Mike Woods in this group as well. But the winner today is Julian Alaphilippe. Well, we did expect it, Hannah, that he won in a sprint, but I think that Gaudu was awfully close in the end.
He put up a great fight, and he's been in this position before when he won the race back in 2021, when it was a two-up sprint between him and his countryman Clement Champoussin. And so Gaudu, he was confident in his ability. I think he went in the position that he was confident in, letting Alaphilippe do that final 500 metres or so into the headwind before they made that right-hand turn. And I think he can be very happy with that performance today. And it's straight away afterwards, it was a fist bump between both of them. It was Skjelmose denying Victor Lafay to make it an all-French podium.
Let's watch a replay of, well, not the sprint, but this moment of sportsmanship there. Well, they knew that they needed each other, Hannah, as well, because on their own, it would have been much more difficult. Here is the top 10, pretty fast. Julien Alaphilippe, David Gaudu, Skjelmose, Lafay, Grégoire, Félix Gall, Lorenzo Rota, Guillaume Martin, Rui Costa, Pierre Latour, Romain Bardet, and Aurélien Parapintre. A lot of French riders here in this French one-day race, the first one of the year. Oh no, second one, of course, after Marseillaise. Tomorrow, we continue with a race that is about 30 kilometers longer. It's hillier in the final, and we are going to L'Étoile-sur-Rhône with another nice little plateau, not that far from the finish line. But tomorrow might be a good moment for a little bit of a bunch sprint, small group sprint. But yeah, still very exciting scenarios today. Like so many times, Hannah, it was a sprint with two. It happened quite often in the past in this race, or a solo win. But it was a nice sprint between Alaphilippe. There it is. Oh, a little bit of a wobble there. If it was gymnastics, that would be half a point deduction.
No, it's a good way to get his early part of his season underway, and with that victory, give him that confidence, that motivation, and also that confirmation that he's back.
Yep, and he's back tomorrow as well, like many of these riders are for the Drôme Classic. Like I said, we travel about 50 odd kilometers to the south for the second installment of this race weekend here in France, and racing continues next Sunday with Paris-Nice, which is going to be the first stage race showdown between Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogačar. So exciting
it's going to be interesting, and a lot of riders either coming from this race, going to Paris-Nice or Tirreno Adriatico. So it's a brilliant time for those to really fine-tune themselves ahead of a big march coming up. And it's always, I find, demanding and nervous racing here on this double header weekend of the Faun-Ardèche and Drôme, because it's such great preparation, but also fantastic, improves fantastic racing.
And the great
that
thing
we've seen over the years here.
Yeah, look at the winners in previous years, and you know that the racing is always pretty tough. This is the city of Valence, on the other side of the river, one of the biggest cities in the region. Big train station as well, for the TGV, for the high-speed trains. And this is a Champ de Mars, as they call it. Basically, a battlefield, Champ de Mars. Not that far from the city centre of Valence, not that far from the station as well. And Valence, of course, is a town that we visited so much in races like Pyrenees, the Tour de France. They have turned down the fountains, Hannah. That's a little bit of a disappointment.
A disappointment. They could have just done it for this helicopter shot, couldn't they?
Yeah, yeah. They could have done it for us.
But a very nice part of Valence.
Yeah.
Very, very well kept.
Look, a bouncy thing there as well. I think Julian Alaphilippe's young kid is still a little bit too young for bouncy castles. A bottle of Saint-Péry for the winner. One of the vignettes that we passed on the route today. A lot of the riders already abandoned the race when we passed the finish line 40k ago. And of course, everything exploded after the peloton caught the two leaders, Rémi Cavagna, Valentin Ferron, almost on the finish line for that last 37.7 kilometer loop. There were a few skirmishes, but then on the very steep climb to I'm looking at the wrong race. Already got tomorrow's race before me. The very steep Mur de Cornas, that was actually where Alaphilippe launched his attack. David Gaudu straight on the wheel, actually. And those were our two major contenders in today's race. Another win for Quick-Step. Why not?
What does that make it? The 901st victory, is it?
Yeah, we're somewhere in that
maybe
region.
902nd.
I don't know if we count the development team, if we count the women's team, who had a fantastic race in Valencia with a 1-2 in the general classification. But of course, a fantastic history for Quick-Step. But it will all be down to the classics, Hannah. We must be honest about that. I think the Belgian sponsors, predominantly Belgian sponsors, don't really care all that much about a race like this. They want to win Omloop and Nieuwsblad. They want to win Flanders. They want to win Roubaix. They want to win the big ones. And of course, but for Alaphilippe, it's a great show of confidence. We'll see him again tomorrow, which is also a tricky final, but it might be that some of the sprinters survive the mayhem.
It does suit him very, very well, especially with that kick to the finish. I think back to last year, and with a group going into that final climb, which is roughly around 900 meters long, Jonas Vingegaard taking the victory there, and it may well be that it's another one for Julian Alaphilippe. There's no reason why he wouldn't be able to perform across that. There's 16 climbs throughout the day, much shorter, only steeper.
16. Yeah. Easy.
Only.
I haven't looked up the amount of meters of elevation, but looking at the profile, it might as well be close to 3,000 like we had today. But and I must say that even like sprinter races nowadays are 2,500 meters of elevation. Like the times of Mario Cipollini, who got dropped on a little flyover, are gone. These sprinters, they are great climbers as well. But if you just do these final climbs really, really fast as a climber, then you throw the heavier sprinters overboard. They usually carry at least 15 kilos more than the climbers. And that is, of course, the tactic that we are going to see tomorrow as we're looking at the Rhone River. And the busy traffic there, because that is actually the road to the south of France, or to the north if you come back from holiday. But I'd rather take it from the positive side and see that we're going on holiday.
Always. Your glass is half full always. It's got to be. Think for the positives.
I'm a positive person. Very positive. Well, we're waiting for the podium ceremony with wine. 2 French riders and 1 from Denmark.
Just taking a look at the elevation for tomorrow, 2,400 metres of elevation.
Oh,
much longer race though, 191 kilometres.
Super easy. Judging from the amount of cars on the car park, that must be a supermarket. And some little bit of field art, very early season field art, Hannah. Normally we see these kind of things during the Tour de France, but we already have our early season field art. We're throwing in some general helicopter shots. I do wonder if we keep the podium. Normally we should stay until the podiums, but it's taking a very long time.
Taking a while, isn't it?
A little bit of an open air theatre right there. And a castle that needs a little bit of DIY. The Château de Coussol, we've seen it before. Really impressive. You can see the houses of the servants and the knights and everything there down. And then, of course, the castle, former castle of the Lord. And these outcrops are absolutely spectacular. And we see them all around the Rhone Valley, because you cannot have a better vantage point than a castle on a hill. I think that's even an Ed Sheeran song, A Castle on a Hill.
I was just about to say, I think
It's
they're
like
the lyrics of Ed Sheeran, aren't they? I was just trying to go through it in my mind then, thinking...
Oh, yeah. When I said it's like, this is a familiar phrase. Well, if we are not doing the podiums, I'll just already say thank you for watching on behalf of Hannah Walker and myself, José Bain, to this Faun-Ardèche Classics. Tomorrow we're back the same time, although I think 5 minutes earlier than today for the second instalment of this race weekend. So if we don't do the podiums, we'll just say goodbye right now. And if we do, well, we'll get back to you for the podiums, because there might be a weird trophy, like we've seen in some races, like a gilded olive in the Jaén Barisò. But if we don't, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow here on GCN Plus, Eurosport and Discovery Plus. Here we are with the podium. Matthias Skelmose there. Dressed nice and warm. The man from Denmark. Last week in the Alpes-Maritimes et du Var, we had really beautiful glass trophies. This is just, I think, your run-of-the-mill sports shop, off-the-shelf trophy. It is a little bit bigger for the number 2, which is nice. I have the idea that we are not hearing any sound from the podium, but only the helicopter sound. Because people are clapping and I don't hear anything. And there is our winner, Julien Alaphilippe, win number 40. Here we are with some podium sounds, looking at his trophy. Vainqueur du Faun-Ardèche Classic, Julien Alaphilippe. Of course, for the French crowds, public, they couldn't have had a better winner. He is, of course, a fan favourite. And now it's time to get a little bit of the sparkly stuff.
I was wondering if Alaphilippe and Gaudu were debating as to whether to
spoil the wine,
to pop the sparkling wine or not, or whether just to enjoy it. Skelmose is ready for it, though.
He's going for it. Gaudu is having a little bit of trouble there. Can somebody help the boy? Come on. There he goes. Off goes the... No, he's just abandoning. Never mind. Never mind. He's just keeping it. It's nice to have a little bit of different sizes of trophies, Hannah. But I'm not particularly impressed by them.
No.
Okay.
At least the winner's got a bigger one than second and third.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah, that is good. But last week's trophies in that other race was better. Well, we'll just say goodbye on this podium. We don't have jerseys, classifications, etc. So yet again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you, or we hope to see you again tomorrow, Hannah. See you tomorrow, and we get the French anthem.
See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Allez, on en termine avec cette magnifique Marseillaise en averti. Alors partez pas. On va accueillir le dossard vert de Faun avec Victor Lafay, le coureur de l'équipe Cofidis qui va rejoindre Julien Alaphilippe, David Gaudu et Mathias Jensen. Monsieur Avassian va remettre le dossard vert, et voilà, on a désormais le podium complet de cette 23e édition. Et là, mesdames et messieurs, il faut faire du bruit comme jamais. Allez l'Ardèche!
Et tout sans rythme, attention, c'est ici la musique. Clap, 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 clap.
spectateurs, je peux vous dire que vous leur avez rendu aujourd'hui ce qu'ils vous ont offert sur la route. Applaudissements à vous, public, pour cette magnifique journée. On va accompagner les coureurs sous l'ovation du public ardéchois. Merci à vous. Merci Julien Lafilippe, merci David Gonu, merci Vincent Gentel, merci Victor Lafay, merci les élus, merci à tout le monde.
Et on vous donne rendez-vous dès demain pour quasiment la revanche sur les routes dromoises avec bien entendu la Faun-Ardèche Classic. Demain donc pour le parcours de 190 km, 2400 mètres de dénivelé. On va se régaler mon cher Simon demain, soyez présents, il y aura bien sûr la présentation des équipes. Et vous allez pouvoir retrouver du côté des paddocks Julien Philippe et toute son équipe pour fêter ensemble cette victoire de cette 23e édition de la Faun-Ardèche Classic Ardèche. Merci à nos élus, partenaires, et merci à vous le public.
On se donne rendez-vous demain du côté d'Étoile pour vivre encore une magnifique journée. Début de la présentation des équipes à 10h du côté d'Étoile pour vivre le second volet de ce week-end Faun-Ardéchois.
Et peut-être redécouvrir le véhicule cyclotéa, le dernier né de chez Faun-Environnement. Ce véhicule 100% électrique, mesdames et messieurs, 100% français. Le véhicule, le vélo, il est fait du côté de Saint-Priest. La benne, elle est faite du côté de Lambesque. C'est un véhicule quasiment presque de la région Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes. C'est juste un concentré de technologie et c'est Faun-Environnement qui nous l'offre pour aller nettoyer bien sûr toutes les villes et les cités. Merci Faun-Environnement.
2 minutes.
Ah, j'ai pas fait les 7 minutes comme ça, j'arrive pas.
Allez, merci DJ.